I was a new student at Rockridge High, a small school in Colorado, starting my junior year. I didn't know a soul. Walking through the halls on my first day, I could feel eyes on me, sizing me up. It's that unspoken rule of high school. Everyone already has their friend groups, their lunch tables, their after-school plans. I was an outsider, but lunch was the worst part. Rockridge had this rule. Underclassmen had to eat in the cafeteria, no exceptions. The moment I stepped inside, the noise hit me like a wave. Laughter, shouting, the clatter of trays. Every table was packed. I scanned the room, hoping to spot an empty seat. Nothing. Then, in the back corner, there was a small table with just one person sitting there. A girl, staring at her phone, earbuds in. She had jet black hair, pale skin, and looked totally uninterested in the chaos around her. With no other option, I walked over. "Mind if I sit here?" She didn't answer at first. Then, without looking up, she shrugged. I took that as a yes. For the next few minutes, I just ate in silence. Then, out of nowhere, she spoke. "You're new." I nodded. "Yeah, just moved here." She finally looked at me, her eyes dark and unreadable. "You shouldn't have." I laughed nervously. Yeah. Well, not really my choice." She didn't laugh. She just went back to scrolling on her phone. The next day, I found myself at the same table. And the next, and the next. Eventually, I learned her name, Lena. She wasn't much of a talker, but little by little, she let me in. One Friday afternoon, she finally invited me to hang out. "Meet me at the old gas station on Route 5. 10 o'clock. "What are we doing?" She smirked. "You'll see." I should have asked more questions, but I was desperate for a friend. That night, I snuck out. The gas station was abandoned, a relic from decades ago. Lena was waiting, leaning against an old, rusted pump. "Ready?" she asked. "For what?" She tilted her head toward the woods. "A little adventure." Everything in me said this was a bad idea, but I ignored it. We walked for what felt like forever. The deeper we went, the quieter it got. Even the crickets stopped chirping. That's when I saw it. A clearing, and in the middle, a single, broken-down house. "This is it," Lena said. "What is?" "The hollow house." I swallowed hard. "Hollow?" She nodded. "They say it's empty, but it isn't." A cold breeze cut through the trees. "Lena, maybe we should." She was already walking toward it. The front door was barely hanging on its hinges. She pushed it open, and the smell of damp wood and dust filled my nose. "People go missing here," she whispered. "They come in, but they don't come out." "Lena," she turned to me. "If you hear knocking from inside the walls, don't answer it." I laughed nervously. Very funny. She didn't laugh. I should have run, right then and there. But I didn't. We stepped inside. The floor creaked under our weight. The air was heavy, thick. Lena led me through the dark hallway, past rooms filled with broken furniture and shattered glass. Then we heard it. It came from inside the walls. I froze. "Lena, what was that?" She didn't answer. She just stared at the wall, her breath shallow. Louder this time. "Lena, let's go. Now." Then something changed. Her face twisted in a way I'd never seen before. "It wants you to answer." My heart nearly stopped. "What?" Her voice was hollow, lifeless. "Knock back." "No," I whispered. Her eyes darkened. "Knock back." And that's when I saw it. A shadow behind her. Tall, twisted, not human. I turned and ran. Bolted through the hallway, out the front door, through the woods. I didn't stop until I was home, locking every door behind me. The next day at school, Lena wasn't there. I never saw her again. I tried asking around. No one seemed to remember her. No one had even seen her sit at that table. It was like she never existed. Then, just a week later, we had a school lockdown. The principal's voice came over the intercom. "This is not a drill. Everyone remain in place. Lock your doors." My heart pounded as the lights flicked off. We all sat in silence, listening. I swear I heard footsteps outside the classroom, slow and deliberate. It was a Friday afternoon, and the energy at school was electric. Everyone was counting down the minutes until the final bell rang, signaling the start of the weekend. I was in the library with my friends, Sarah and Jake, finishing up a group project for history class. The library was quiet, save for the occasional whisper or the rustle of pages being turned. Sunlight streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow over the rows of bookshelves. It felt like a normal day, but it wasn't. At exactly 1:47 p.m., the alarm went off. It was that sound, the one that sends a jolt of adrenaline through your body no matter how many times you've heard it. The lockdown alarm. At first, I thought it was just another drill. We'd had so many that year that they'd almost become routine. But then I noticed the look on Ms. Carter's face. Our librarian, who was usually calm and collected, was pale. Her hands were shaking as she hurried over to us. "This isn't a drill," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the blaring alarm. "Get into the storage room. Now." My heart skipped a beat. Sarah grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. Jake looked like he was about to say something, but Ms. Carter cut him off. "No questions. Go. Now." We didn't argue. The three of us followed Ms. Carter to the small storage room at the back of the library. It was cramped, filled with boxes of old books and supplies, but it was the safest place in the building. A few other students were already huddled inside, their faces tense with fear. Ms. Carter ushered us in and closed the door behind us, plunging us into near darkness. The only light came from the thin crack under the door. "Stay quiet," Ms. Carter whispered. "No matter what you hear, don't make a sound." We all nodded, too scared to speak. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, the sound of it echoing in my ears. This wasn't a drill. Something was really wrong. The minutes dragged on. The storage room was hot and stuffy, and the air felt heavy. I could hear the faint sound of someone crying, but I couldn't tell who it was. My mind raced with possibilities. Was there a shooter in the building? A bomb threat? I tried to push the thoughts away, but they kept creeping back in. Then we heard it. Heavy, deliberate footsteps, echoing down the hallway outside the library. They were getting closer. My breath caught in my throat. I could feel Sarah trembling beside me, her hand still gripping my arm. Jake was crouched in the corner, his eyes wide with fear. None of us moved. None of us breathed. The footsteps stopped right outside the door. For a moment, there was silence. Then, a voice. Deep, unfamiliar. Not a teacher, not a cop. "Is anyone in there?" My stomach dropped. I could feel the panic rising in my chest, threatening to spill out. None of us answered. The doorknob rattled, and I felt like I was going to throw up. Miss Carter had locked it from the inside. But what if he had a key? What if he broke it down? The rattling stopped, and the footsteps moved away. I let out a shaky breath, but the relief didn't last long. A few minutes later, we heard a crash from somewhere in the library. Glass breaking, books falling. Then, silence. The kind of silence that feels heavier than noise. I don't know how long we stayed in that closet. It felt like hours. My legs were cramping, and my back ached from sitting in the same position for so long. But I didn't dare move. None of us did. Finally, we heard a voice over the intercom. "This is Principal Harris. The lockdown is over. Please remain in your classrooms until further notice." Miss Carter unlocked the door and peeked out cautiously before letting us out. The library was a mess. Books were scattered everywhere, some of them torn and crumpled. One of the windows was shattered, shards of glass littering the floor. But what really got me was the message scrawled on the whiteboard in big, red letters. "I'm still here." My blood ran cold. Sarah let out a small whimper, and Jake just stared, his face pale. Miss Carter immediately called the front office, her voice shaking as she explained what had happened. Within minutes, the police were there, searching the school for any sign of an intruder. But they didn't find anyone. No shooter, no bomb, no explanation for the chaos. The official story was that it had been a prank, a false alarm triggered by someone who thought it would be funny to scare the whole school. But I didn't buy it. Whoever it was, they knew how to move through the school without being seen. And that message, it felt like a warning. The rest of the day was a blur. We were sent back to our classrooms, where teachers tried to reassure us that everything was okay. But it didn't feel okay. Not when I kept replaying the sound of those footsteps, the voice outside the door, the crash that had sent chills down my spine. When I got home that night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the words on the whiteboard. "I'm still here." I couldn't shake the feeling that whoever had done this wasn't finished, that they were still out there, watching, waiting. A week later, the police held a press conference. They had finally figured out who was behind the lockdown. It was a former student, a guy named Marcus who had graduated 2 years earlier. He'd been expelled during his senior year for bringing a knife to school, and apparently, he'd been holding a grudge ever and he let out a breath. "Forget you ever saw it," he muttered before turning away, mumbling something under his breath I couldn't quite catch. The next day, I went back down to the basement. I don't know why. Maybe to prove to myself that I wasn't crazy, that what I saw wasn't real. But the door wasn't there. Not just locked, not just boarded up. It was gone, like it had never existed. I never spoke about it after that.